Right. So we're in Shabbos Kodesh, and we're up to the chapter entitled Nerot Shabbos, the candles of Shabbos. So finally, we're moving into the practical side of different observances of Shabbos. Right? We talked a little bit about Tosefes Shabbos, additional element of Shabbos, adding on beforehand. We talked about themes of the Shabbos representing the Beis HaMikdash and the Talmud Chacham and different parallels that exist in time and space. And the subtitle is Ha'arat Choshech Ha'olam Hazeh, illuminating the darkness of this world. And the Shabbos is a rega shel or besoch koshchas yemei hacholin. So Shabbos is the moment of light, like almost like a moment of a flash in an otherwise dark, mundane world. I already talked to you about the approach from Rav Kook on tshuva, and Oros HaTshuva, who describes tshuva as the initial impetus of tshuva as the flash. And that flash is when suddenly an entire dark, cityscape becomes illuminated, and you see everything, and then it gets dark again, and you have to climb back to that. And that's really what the Malach does to us when we're born. We learn all of the Torah in utero, and then we forget it. And the Malach, the Gemara and Sota, the basis, the Malach, the angel gives us a zetz on our lip, and this is the claim. I don't know where this comes from. That this is the spot. I'm not really sure why that's the spot.
Because it's indented.
It's indented because the cells divide, and that's why everything is half on our faces. We have two eyes and two ears, and this is the fulcrum of our body. That's really why it's indented. But that became I think.
I don't know that it's actually has anything to do with divided.
I'm saying that's what happens to the body. The body, the cells split.
Right. Then why wouldn't that be
your entire
down your chin? And why wouldn't
length of
some people do have a cleft chin.
Cleft. Yeah, cleft.
Right. So in any event, there's a biological explanation for everything, and there's a spiritual explanation for everything. But Malach gives us some sort of patch. We forget all of our Torah. And I think it was the brother of the Vilna Gaon asks, why is it that we have to forget all the Torah in order to learn it again? Why just not learn in the first place, right? Why go through that experience? The answer is that you have to have a goal. You have to know what you're looking for. So if you experience purity in one moment, like imagine you spend your whole life rebelling, and then all of a sudden you have like a moment, a Shabbaton or a great speaker or a song that just touches your soul. And then that moment dies, and you never get it again. You're always trying to get that high. So how do you get that high again? The answer is you experience the high so you could one day reach it, right? You could one day go back to that again, and you have something to long for. And that's what tshuva is. Rav Kook says, or the tshuva begins with a moment of inspiration. But then that comes the hard work. The hard work's not simple.
But also, if you've learned something before, it's easier to learn it again. So maybe that's why I always thought that the touch was to forget it, but you're going to be able.
Now there are grooves. Now there are grooves in the memory, right? Okay, good. So here we have what. Sorry.
When we heard it, one of the boys who was the smartest in our class, somebody said, "Oh, the angel didn't touch David too hard because he was so smart."
There are stories. There are sort of these stories throughout the ages of people, of children who were just these, prodigies, and they just didn't. They knew everything, and the angel didn't affect them. There's now in Israel very well-known Sephardic Talmud Chacham, who's maybe in his 30s, who knows everything that's ever been written in Torah. And he's also a musician, also plays some music also. But you have thousands of people gathering to hear him in the Haredi world of all ages. It's called the Yanuka. Yeah, people call him Yanuka. They call him Gadol. The Yanuka. Yeah, I don't know what, because there's more to life than just being a genius, right?
You have to know how to.
Yanuka.
Right, but he's the Yanuka is becoming this phenomenon now in the world, and you can watch videos of him.
What is Yanuka?
Yanuka means the young one in Aramaic. Yanuka.
Isn't Anuk mean giant?
Yanuka is probably an Aramaic version of Tinuk. Yanuka is right. Yanuka, right. So lianek is to nurse or to, right? It's a tinok. So his name is Rav Barry, Shlomo Barry or something better. But anyway, you look up the Yanuka, you'll find great videos of him, and there's like whole stories, but they're almost like at this point they're like messianic in nature, so it's a little bit funny if they can.
Does he always learn the Spartic aspect of everything? Or does
No, he
know
knows that, like he knows
knows
everything. He knows everything he's ever seen. He knows by heart. It's, yeah, there are things.
Very.
Right. Look up Yanuka, Yanuka. Anyway, back to this. So normal people like us who don't have that gift, we forget everything, right? I introduce myself to someone at Kiddush and I forget their name 5 seconds later. So that's how poor my memory is. But why do we have that? So we strive, so we long, so we create grooves in the memory, we create some traction. And Shabbos is being called also this rega of or, this moment of light, this moment of illumination. Amar Chazal, the sages teach us, is a Gemara in Shabbos, Daf Kaf Gimel and Beis, Amar Rava, Shita, Ner, Beso, Vener, Hanukkah, Ner, Beso, Adif, Mishum, Shalom Bayis. Now let's say you have 2 options. You have enough money for 1 candle, either Shabbos Licht or the Hanukkah Licht. It's a Friday night Hanukkah. Which one do you choose? So Rava says it's obvious that you choose the Ner of the house, meaning the Shabbos candle, because Shabbos candle represents Shalom Bayis. Why do we do Shabbos candles in the first place? One of the reasons brought down in the Rishonim is based on this Gemara, is that it brings Shalom Bayis, which is why if you have 2 options, a man or a woman to light candles for the household, we prefer the woman to do so because she is the vessel of Shalom. That's what the Chazal understood. That was one approach. The point is that Shabbos candles bring Shalom to the house, right? You have a dark house, you can't see anything, you're crashing into items, you're tripping over this and that, you can't find your keys, and turn the light on, it's great. So that's Shalom Bayis. So Mizgale Khan, the Gemara is revealing to us their love, the special love for Shabbos candles. By the way, if you don't have enough money for Kiddush or Hanukkah candles, you spend the money on Hanukkah candles. But Shabbos candles versus Hanukkah candles goes to Shabbos. Why? Pirsumi Nisa is such a great aspect. Publicizing the miracle of Hanukkah is a vital idea. However, Pirsumi Nisa and Yonei Gilu Emuna Hashkach L'Kirat Hashem. Pirsumi Nisa, publicizing a miracle, reveals faith in God, the divine providence of Hashem. Yesod Ikari Emuna. It's one of the foundations of faith. L'chora Ein Davar Gadol Mizeh, and you would think there'd be nothing greater in the world than Hanukkah candles. In fact, the whole purpose, says the Ramban, of mitzvos is that we should develop a sense of emunah, a faith in God. And yet, Ner Shabbos gets preference to Ner Hanukkah. Why? So, Mala Adiva Social Ner Shabbos, why should Shabbos receive preferential treatment in that halachic dilemma when you only have to do one? The answer is, you could explain it simply, we could explain it on a deeper level as well. Shabbos is the lashon of shvisa. Shvisa means to rest. Keshe megia Shabbos. When Shabbos arrives, kol batal mevutal, everything is undermined. Everything is stopped. Right? Whatever you're working on, it no longer is a problem. Remember that machshav we said last time, which was, it wasn't that Shabbos comes and you have to like take a break in the middle of your file, make sure you save all your accounts and pick up where you left off on Motzei Shabbos. Shabbos comes and then the work, it's just done. It's kiviyachol doesn't exist. It doesn't cross my mind, doesn't bother me at all. I'm not worried about it because it's done. Everything that's possible to be. So that's the machshav we had to have with work vis-a-vis Shabbos and Chol. During the 6 days of creation, it's natural. You live in a natural world, nature-oriented world, physical confines and constraints that limit what you could buy, what you could afford, and what you could do, and how far you could travel. Shabbos doesn't limit that. There's no limit. That's why the money you spent on Shabbos is not calculated in the cheshbon that Hashem figures out in the beginning of the year when deciding what we earn on Rosh Hashanah Yom Kippur for the whole year. Because Shabbos is l'malam and a teva. It's above that. That's why it's mein olam haba. You're tapping into a world that's beyond this world, and that's why we could even travel to, as Rod Serling used to say, to other dimensions. Right? go to other places. Okay, so if that's the case, Kish nichnes Shabbos Kodesh mishtana seder hanhaga. Nature is overturned. Hakol mit batel. Everything that we knew in reality is now batel, is now canceled out. Velo nosar ba'olam ela kavod Hashem yisbach. And all that remains in this world is the honor of Hashem. Hametzios hamitit shel Shabbos hi gilui achdus yisbach she'ein od milvado. The revelation of Shabbos is the revelation that there's nothing else in the world other than God. I thought I had a project I was worrying about. I thought I was concerned about paying my mortgage. Ain't od milvado. There's nothing else other than Hashem. That's the mentality. Now, zehu gam inyan shel hamalachot shenesu b'Shabbos. This is also ties in not just the attitude that we embrace when we come into Shabbos, but also the forbidden actions of Shabbos. Be'etzem ein iser lavod kasher b'Shabbos. There's no iser to do hard work on Shabbos. Nobody cares if you have to walk 5 miles to shul. That's not prohibited. You're allowed to walk. You're allowed to work. You're allowed to lift up. If your pot of cholent weighs 70 pounds, you could lift it off the stove and you could serve the yeshiva bacham, right? It's not a problem. So then what's the issue? So it's not about hard work. So what is Asr on Shabbos? Lift heavy tables on Shabbos from one place of the room to the other. It's only according to the Ramban, he writes, that there's a prohibition for that kind of hard labor. The Shabbos Nezra Asiyas Malachot. Shabbos, you can't do malacha. It's not work is Asr. Malacha is Asr. What is malacha? The Lamet is malacha that they did in the Mishkan. What does that mean? Mishkan is where they created worlds. Remember Bezalel, when he created the Mishkan, the Medrash says that he used the same secrets that God used to create the world. It was like a microcosm of the universe. So it's a different kind of creativity. It's creative labor that is akin to the Yetzira of the world. Kol malacha she'al yada nivne ha'olam ne'aseres b'Shabbos. All work that was used to build the world is forbidden on Shabbos. Zehu seder hanhaga Shabbos ha'olam kulo batel mehutal. Now, that's why the world that we knew it, the natural world as we know it, is gone. Rakabois baruch kayam, but only the Creator is around. So
Seems strange to me. First, we say that it's been the Lamed of the Mishkan.
Right.
But then he says it's actually from the world.
Right.
Of course, there's nothing physical about the creation of the world that we can copy. So I'm not sure what that means.
How would we do it? Right. So the copy of that would be the Mishkan. That's the point. The Mishkan is the recreation of the world, as it were. Now you have to understand also, when Hashem created the world, the Gilui Shekhinah was where? Where was Hashem? Everywhere. When the Medrash says that when we had 7 generations of sinners, and we didn't even know how to relate, and even, by the way, according to is Machlokes Rishonim, whether the Mishkan was a response to Chet HaEgel or prior to Chet HaEgel, but according to the opinion that it was a response to the Chet HaEgel, we had to fix something. What did we have to fix? In the Sefer Or Gedaliyahu, Gedaliah Shorzal suggests, based on the Ramban, that the Mishkan was a response to the Chet HaEgel, because the Chet HaEgel meant I could find God in everything, which is kind of true, right? But if you could find God in everything, then you run the risk of pantheism, which is the worship of other objects, plants, animals, my own, right? If God is everywhere, then why don't I worship everywhere? That was the danger. So that went afoul. So we had to we had to centralize God's presence to one locale. So that way we didn't run the risk of the Chet HaEgel again. And to us, we're far from it because we don't have a desire for Avodah Zarah anymore. But because we don't have that, we also don't have a desire to serve Hashem in the right way. But God's focus was centralized in the Beis HaMikdash. That's what the Mishkan was. So if you think about it, the creation of the world meant God was creating his presence in the world through physical manifestations. The Mishkan was the very recapitulation of that event, but now centralized in one locale with various vessels and wash basins and Mizbeach and menorah and all things like that, which represent different facets of God.
We're intrigued by the fact that we no longer know how to worship Hashem. Like, what is it that worshiping idolatry has us?
We don't have the same burning desire to serve a deity. It's not no one gets in the morning like, I gotta daven. Oh my gosh. Nobody thinks that way. Nobody really has like a cheshek for that. You know, you have a moral obligation or perhaps you're motivated by things you need in your life or someone who's sick, but we don't feel like, you're starving after fasting. I gotta eat. You don't have to daven. No one says, we really got to do that. No one's ever done that. Not since the time in which the Yetzer Hara for the Avodah Zarah was eradicated. And once upon a time it was. Remember the Gemara. The Gemara tells us that they tried to get rid of the Yetzer Hara for the Avodah Zarah. And then the rabbis said, okay, we're on a roll. Let's get rid of the Yetzer Hara for Arayos. And then 3 days of chickens, right? So they said, okay, we can't do that. We're going to destroy the world. So if you imagine the desire that we have for Arayot channeled towards spirituality and God, it's something we can't wrap our heads around. The Rambam describes the way you're supposed to optimally love Hashem. If you start with infatuation for someone you love, right? That would be a start to understand infatuation for Hashem. But it's very hard for us to relate to that. But that's where it comes from. So back, yeah.
Sorry, this is a stupid question. The Mishkan is not the Beis Mikdash.
No, the Mishkan is this is a good question. The Mishkan is the first structure that's built while we're traveling. It's the travel edition. Milton Bradley, right? Travel edition of the Beis Mikdash. And then when we arrive in Israel, the Mishkan moves to Shiloh and eventually a few other places, Gilgal. And then eventually, when the temple is built, the Mishkan is eradicated and we have the temple.
So then there's no more need for it because we said
that's correct. Although there are times both before and after the first bais when people, due to travel needs or the splitting of the northern and the kingdom and Malchus Yehuda, that regional bamos were set up, altars, which was the purpose of those bamot was to worship Hashem, but in many of the generations they became prohibited and akin to Avodah Zarah. Why?
There were some generations
after
the Beis Hamikdash.
Yeah. So bamot, there's a bamos went sort of mutter usher for a little bit. There was a little bit of back and forth for a while. We didn't know what to do with them. Now, if you think about it, it sounds like it's a very reasonable thing. I want to worship Hashem. I'll build myself a shul, right? That's exactly what it is. But they would offer sacrifices. The Abama means an altar, and they would offer a sacrifice. Now we have the Bima, and we don't sacrifice people on the Bima anymore. The rabbi, but yeah, we don't sacrifice people. But we don't sacrifice animals, right? Exactly.
But they're supposed to travel to the Beit HaMikdash.
Yeah, so that's part of the tension, right? God was supposed to be centralized in one location, and if you don't do that, you run the risk of Avodah Zarah, strange avodah. So that's where it comes up. Anyway, so what caused? Now back to this topic. Ma gorim lebitul ha'olam hazeh. Why was this world considered batel? What about this world is nullified, is canceled out? Lamito shel davar ein zu she'elah. That's not a question. Ki anu yodim sheba kavia v'kayama. It's here. Shabbos kavia v'kayama. Shabbos is set. Kach barakosh baruch zolamo she'ez yomim tavo v'asikum avtecha v'yom hashish shavas Hashem elokecha. That Hashem built the world in 6 days and then He rested on the seventh day. Ach belvin maasi practical roim kianu ki ach nasa Shabbos nasa zayidei hadlakas ner Shabbos. And having time of shadavar. Yet, even though Shabbos arrives, whether you like it or not, right? Shabbos the hour strikes Shkia, and then we have to stop. We have to put down the phone. Shabbos arrives, but we also have an active role in bringing about Shabbos, even though it's Kviya v'Kayama. Even though it comes on its own, we light the candles, and what happens? Shabbos begins. So what is that about? By the way, you can even start Shabbos earlier than the time that it comes when you light the candles. So that's amazing. I can't start, I can't decide, okay, well, I'm going to bring in Purim early. It's going to be Purim, right? It's a whole shiloh by Yontif, can you do by Yontif. But I can't bring in any other time-bound mitzvah. I can't say, well, it's nighttime, it's 2 a.m., but I really want to wear tzitzis, so I'm going to have the mitzvah wear tzitzis, and I'll make a bracha on tzitzis and I'll put them on. It's a daytime mitzvah, so I can't do that. But by Shabbos, I can bring Shabbos in early. How do I do that? Via Habakas Neros. So even though Shabbos is a phenomenon that God brings about, we could also generate early. There's actually, we've been talking on Shabbos from the book of Rasisei Laila. You come to that shir sometimes, so every other week. So Rasisei Laila, he speaks about the idea that Yontif is declared holy by man, Shabbos is declared holy by God, and that the exception was Purim. Purim was declared holy by Haman. Haman made Purim holy by drawing the lots. So So here we see that even mankind has a hand in Shabbos. We light the candles. We can bring about Shabbos as well.
Because we can see our kedusha.
Right. Right. But we're creating Kedusha Shabbos. And now you have an Isser, a prohibition to do any of the malachot even an hour before Shabbos is supposed to start. So that's amazing. Okay. So let's go to the next paragraph. Hamuvan bizeh nirakach. What is this about? Hine havdola mivarachem anu mavdil and kodesh l'chol. Shabbos hihipuch gamar shemod l'chol. When we say havdalah, we recite the blessing. He who separates between that which is kodesh, that which is chol. Shabbos is the opposite entirely of the weekday. MSE, the truth is, shekach gam higdiru lonu chazal et chiluk ben olam hazeh leolam haba. The rabbis told us the difference between this world and the next world. Tashat choshech vayihi laila bo tirmosh kol chiyato yar. Tashat choshech ze olam hazeh shedome lelaila. What did this mean? This is a Maran Bava Metzia, Pei Gimel. Just open up my version and see how this is. I've lost traction on my fingers. That means to lose your grip, right? Lose your grip. Is that where the expression comes from? Didn't know why my grandmother was always licking pages. I never understood that. Yeah. A radioactive spider that can bite you and give you.
Oh my gosh. Sci-fi, forget it.
Spider-Man.
Where is this? Bava Metzia, okay. Yeah. So Shabbos is the opposite of the weekday in the sense that it says Havdalah, you were saying you made darkness. This is the world which resembles night. What is darkness? Okay, so let's go to the next piece. Let's see what this is. What is choshech? Ma'u musag shel choshech. L'dugma, by way of example, Adam nichnas lebeis hamedrash be'emtza halayla umit mechapes sefer. Again, and he's talking to Bnei Yeshiva when he's writing this, when he's giving his lectures. So their frame of reference is looking for a book in a dark-based medrash. So you go into the library and you look for the book you're looking for. Gemara, Chashmal ena dolek, the electricity is not working. Gam or hayarech eno meir mivad hachalonot, the moon is not shining into the windows sufficiently. You turn on your phone and you have the flashlight. No problem. Shorer choshech gamor. Umatchil legashesh takirot. What's he going to do? Start to feel the walls, right? You won't be successful in a sefer, but you'll never find the book you want. I've done that. That's very hard. If you're very organized, you'll find them. You know exactly where books are. You'll know it. So, is it proper to say once darkness fell on the world, is it appropriate to say that when darkness arrived, that your Sfarim just disappeared through the window? They ceased to exist entirely? Absolutely not. They're there. You just can't see them. Okay, is ein kan davar? No. They're there. And they're in front of your eyes. Mamash kemo be'emtza yom, just as they were in the middle of the day. Rak shehu eino roeh osam aval be'emes usheim kan lefanav. They're there in front of you, but you can't see them. Nimsala made them. Shehevdom and or lachosh. The difference between light and darkness. Eino heim davar kayam olo. This is not Schrodinger's cat, right? That if you open the box, you know, the open the box, is the cat present? Is the cat not present? Is the cat alive? Is the cat dead? So
So that the cat both exists.
Right.
Exist.
The model of the cat is that there's a box in quantum physics. So there's a box, there's a poison in the box, there's a radioactive isotope, and it's dissolving, whatever. And at some point, the food is accessible to the cat. The cat will eat it, and the cat will die. But you don't know when that takes place, right? Unknown time, unknown moment. So the cat is in an unknown state. Is the cat either dead or alive? So the thought experiment was that if I open the box, I could find out if the cat alive or dead. But before I open it up, the cat is both alive and dead because it's an unknown. This is about trying to identify where particles movement of particles. That's what it has to do with. Anyway, so because it's in all locations until you actually have one location, until it's in one place. So the same thing here is this.
To just say something that I don't know rather than saying it's both. because it isn't both.
Yeah, so it's heavily criticized, the example he gives to explain quantum physics, but apparently, and people who know this, which is not me, that it makes perfect sense when you talk about quantum particles. I don't know.
This is what my dad does.
Right. Okay. So he
explains
kills
it
cats.
very well. Kills cats for a living.
I gave a shear once on this, and I called the shear "Curiosity Killed the Cat." It's your curiosity kills it. I don't know if that's the origin of the idiom, but I believe that that's the miraglim. That according to the Ishbitzer, the spies only create. It's a radical idea. They only create a future whereby, and this is Rav Tzadok's Rebbe. This is why you see this radical thoughts from Rav Tzadok. They only create a world where Beis Hamikdash is destroyed, where Jews are being slaughtered, where we have thousands of years of Gullus, only because they went and looked at the land and saw that in the future. But had they not seen that in the future, it wouldn't have happened. So that's what he says. So they changed the reality of the future by seeing that. Whatever we see, you meet a person for the first time. If you want to see something about them, you'll project that about them as well. So yeah, that's the asod. So curiosity killed the cat. Curiosity killed the miraglim. And that's it. So over here, you can't say that's true. If I go into the Beis Medrash,
You're saying that it was what they saw, what they.
had they not gone, had they
projected in
not
their
done
head.
it, had they not looked, it would have been
And
fine.
just trusted Hashem.
But did
Yeah,
they
God
really
promised.
see it, or did they imagine that that's?
Okay, yeah, I don't see the difference. Either they imagined or they thought
either way,
Because
that
if
they
it was really
reported.
there, if they saw it,
it was a nevuah.
Yeah, if it was a nevuah.
What's the start time on that nevuah? Is nevuah true because you projected to the truth? Is it true because once where's the chicken and the egg in that? Right? It's time is not linear. So maybe they projected that. Maybe they saw it. I don't know. You can make your head spin if you think about it. So, but think positively. Difference between light and dark is not, is it around? Whatever's in the light exists in the darkness. And where is the difference? In your perception of that reality. The person who is in a dark room those books don't exist. Right? And that's the important part. That is the power of your perception, the power of your mind. This world is choshech, is dark. Olam haba is or. What's the difference between this world and the next world? Very little. Our ability to perceive God's presence and goodness in the world and no evil. This world, it's open in front of us. In the world to come, we see the truth. We don't see the truth in this world. So it's hidden to our eyes. Olam haba is the oneness of God. The oneness of God is right in front of our eyes. You can't miss God. It's the most obvious thing in the world. If you see what's a nifreshes?
No chandelier.
Oh, okay. There's a large chandelier in the middle of the Beis Medrash. Remind me, I got a great story about that. Imagine you see a chandelier in the middle of the Beis Medrash. Barur lanu mikoach hasechel hayasher shebesocho shechenu shemishu talao. So someone must have hanged the chandelier. Anu mevinim gam sheoso echad lo haya nechei u'mishutak. That person obviously didn't have physical handicaps that would have prevented them from being able to do that. They had to be able to stand, to hold something up with their arms, etc. To hang a chandelier, you need a certain amount of strength and a skill set, right? And know a little bit about basic wiring, right? So nuchal gam lahasik shahisa lo yedia siyamet bechashmalit. You can also assume that he knew a little bit about electric work. Vim Kain, Haim Pnei Hadvarim Benifreshes Achas, Ad Kama Berurim Hadvarim Kishinisponim Beolam Umenasim Lahavin Miyatzeret Hashemesh. When you look at the world and you say, who created the sun? Mitalata Kochavim, who, borrowing the language of the Chazal or Tehillim, who suspended the stars in the sky. Kain Mishponim Begufa Adam, when you look at the body of a person, Tmei Miyatzarta Ein, who made the eye, who made the brain? The staring at the wonders of creation in a body or the universe should fill you with a sense of awe about the Creator. When you start to think about it, it forces you to be batil. To what am I? Who am I? I can't do any of this. If you really contemplate the wonders of creation, you should be overwhelmed. This is why the ultimate kfira of explaining, I'm not saying explaining the process of evolution altogether doesn't have a place if you want to bring God into the picture, but explaining it without God is the ultimate kfira, right? To take God out of the operative role of evolving the world, or out of take him out of creation by just simply because it's normal to be filled with wonder and when you look at the world, when you look.
That was the whole purpose. I mean, at least Darwin had this.
Of course. To
taking
delete God.
God.
That was the motivation, right? Right. So Hine, behold, even though God's presence is so obvious, people who are dwelling in darkness, people who don't see it, who live in darkness, they don't detect God, right? And so for them, it's very hard to see God behind that meaning you're living in a world without God. So all these things that are for us so obvious, you walk into a lit-based madrasa and you see the books, right? It's obvious to you that it didn't just exist like that. You walk into a room and see a beautiful chandelier, you know that someone suspended it and someone built it and someone created that glass, the chandelier, right? It didn't just like get chipped off of a stone and appear like that. So there's a lot of history behind that light, and the people who release those balloons, they're stuck over the chandelier there, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a lot of history behind it, and you know that because you could see. But if you were blind to that, one day, while I was walking in the street, saw a person working hard. He's lifting stones up and putting them back, taking them off and putting them back. What are you doing? This effort, this extra work. I'm working to make a living. Don't you know that only someone who works is going to make money? Saw someone repeating this after Kiddush, he ran out of shul. Never happens here. Not to be Adav Argaz. It looks like an ant farm here. After people are just going through the aisles. Here, busy work. Not to be Adav Argaz Kelim. He took in his hands a box with heavy vessels. Nichnas Michoniso. Went to his car. Litor Achar Panason. He went to do his work. So we've asked him, this is so strange. You're before Hashem who runs the whole universe. We told there's no way you can achieve a parnasa without Hashem. And right, it makes no difference how hard the person's going to work, how much effort, how fast they run out of davening to get to work on time, right? None of this matters. God's in charge of the universe. So if you really believe that, if the lights are really on in your base matters, you would know who's feeding you. The fact that we have to work to make a living, it's a divine punishment that Adam has suffered because he took from the Eitzadas Tovrah, right? Because through the sweat of your brow you will eat. Used to be that you could eat through Hashgachas Hashem, you would see God everywhere, and that would be fine. But the curse of human existence is that we have to work. Madua larutz kechaser dea. Why am I rushing like I lost my mind? It's illogical. Chashchas ha'olam hazeh itkaseh gam emet pshuta zeh minei anshe olam. So we live in such a dark world that we forget who pays us, our salary. Sefer chovos levavos. It doesn't mean you don't do your job. You show up on time, you're honest, right? Of course. We're talking about the idea of that the mad rush doesn't make any sense. And again, you could say, well, it's the only meaning that worked out for him. It's the only time they could eventually. I understand there are cheshbonos that we can calculate. But the overall idea is an important one. That our priorities, what we really think every day is where our money comes from. Right? And that's the problem that we have to address. In the book Chovos Levavos, just a very important Mussar work. It's one we can perhaps do in this shir. The Chovos Levavos, the Super Al Chassid Echad Sheifli B'Sfina L'Diras Yam L'Tzarach Parnaso. There was a certain righteous person, and he went overseas on his boat for a business trip. Shalu Echad HaGoyim Le'ezeh Kel Hu Oved. One of the Gentiles there asked him, "Which God do you worship? What's your religion?" Right? It's a nice icebreaker of a conversation. Always works well. Hitchil also Yehudi l'ta'er at God l'taboris baruch bo umamin ve'elavu. To describe, I worship God, the one God, and He's the one I bow down to, I pray to. He beat bo oto goy v'shal harei matarat nisiatcha sagat parnasa. Isn't the purpose of your trip to make money? You're on a business trip. They're on a plane. They're talking, right? If your God is so great, then why don't you stay put? He was overwhelmed with embarrassment to klima. How the question penetrated his sense of his heart and his guilt. He went back and he decided, okay, I don't have to travel for this purpose. So that's okay.
He's doing his
I know.
childhood.
Right.
To travel, he had to travel.
Right. And I think, again, this is in his Shar HaBitachon, and what the Chovos Levavos is doing is giving a mashal, parable, to understand the concept. He's not saying that this is practical. This is again, you have to understand, Chovos Levavos is a very old book. And what the Chovos Levavos is doing is trying to give us a sense of priorities in bitachon, not this is a halacha psuka that you are ushered to go to work on a business trip. But the Gemara is filled with different models of work. People who go overseas, people travel for 2 months, for a year, for 1 month. So that's clear that that's allowed. And beforehand, there was a sense of his own shame that he was feeling was, I really thought that my parnasa comes from elsewhere. And that's the so we're going to stop here, but I just want to kind of summarize this concept. That is that Shabbos is being viewed in this sense as a moment in which the lights are all on, in which it's the same reality. So now we're saying Shabbos is not an alternate reality. It's not switching nature around. This is a new essay. He's saying that Shabbos is the same reality of the Chol, but the Chol we're blinded, so we don't see it. So we think, okay, we're living in a totally different world where I need this and I need that. And I need to plug in with all of these things in order to survive. And then on Shabbos, the mask is removed, and Einod Milvado, there's nothing other than God. And halavai, we should have had a Shabbos attitude all week long. Right? This is why you could probably be Mosif on Shabbos. Why are you allowed to add on Shabbos? Because that's the truth. We're just, we're not necessarily ready for it until
You're not
an hour.
turning the light on.
Well, yeah, exactly. Now we're going to understand what the halakha's neiros is about. Lighting a candle means like turning the light on in the base medrash. We're gonna arrive there soon.
What was your story about the chandelier? Said you something else.